Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Wheel Nuts F1. Today, we'll be discussing the Monaco Grand Prix from the beginning with all the chaos in lap one through a bit of the more boring parts all the way to the end. We'll discuss some of the winners, the losers. Obviously, Charles Leclerc, big winner. But I think Formula One is also a pretty big winner, as this is the first time since 2017 that we've had four different race winners in the first eight races. So that's pretty cool. Um, Joining me, as always, is a very happy man, I'm sure. Jordan, how you doing, man?
The best Sunday of my life by a long shot, bro. By a long shot. I'm not even happy, bro. I'm jubilant. I'm ecstatic.
Great news. I don't blame you.
Yeah, dude. Oh, dude. Just 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 perfection. Just I don't care that it was a boring race. I really don't. I really don't give a damn. It was just chef's kiss. Dude, the reason I'm not wearing my Ferrari shirt right now is it's stained with tears. And that's not even a word of a lie. I promise you, I was crying my eyes out from the moment Charles crossed the line until the moment the podium ceremony was done. I could not stop it. It was just, what else can you say, man? What else can you say?
Fill some of our fans in. What made it so emotional?
Dude, so, the only Monaco born driver to win a race at Monaco was in 1931. That was prior to F1 even being formed. Charles Leclerc is the first F1 driver in history born in Monaco to win the Monaco Grand Prix. There's never been another Monegasque that has won his home race inside the Formula One context. Charles Leclerc, since 2017, has had this almighty curse over his head. Some say it's a curse, some say it's shit driving, some say it's bad luck, but it's a curse, I promise you. 2017, DNF. 2018, DNF. 2019, DNF. 2020, did not start. 2021, and in 2021, pole position, by the way. Pole position does not start the race. Granted, that was his own error for putting it into the barriers through the swimming pool section. Just a little bit unlucky, damaging the gearbox, unable to start, issues on the formation lap.
In qualifying, of course.
Exactly that, yeah. Crash during qualifying, issues on the formation lap. 2022, the most horrendous strategy call I have seen in a very long time.
It was also in pole then, no?
He was also on pole, yes. That is very correct.
Yeah?
Basically, just cocked up his whole race, came out behind Max Verstappen in fourth place, didn't even get a podium. 2023. Again, off the podium, unable to finish the race inside the top three. Now, everybody, a cloud of doubt over everybody's heads. Will Charles Leclerc ever win the Monaco Grand Prix? 2024, we set the scene. No drama, no weather, no bullshit. Charles, granted, Oscar probably should have put it on pole. His ideal lap, according to simulations, was a lot better than Charles's, but Charles put it together.
Yep.
Pops it on pole position. The race starts. Chaos. Now my heart rate's going like crazy because there's going to be a second start. Again, luckily, we get underway a second time. Charles Leclerc just manages to cruise his way up into first position through the first corner, makes his way up the hill, starts getting into a bit of a rhythm. Ladies and gentlemen, 78 laps of the Principality later, Charles Leclerc is a race winner at Monaco. It's the greatest day in the history of motorsport.
And I think one other thing that also made it so special was the fact about his dad.
Oh, dude,
That it was always a dream with his dad to have won it, and then he told a white lie to his dad that he'd signed for Ferrari when he hadn't yet.
He hadn't even had a Formula One seat at that point.
Yeah.
I don't believe.
And yeah, got the dream all coming together. He said he couldn't see in the last few laps through the tunnel. Chaotic, man, chaotic.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Let's go a bit from the beginning to the end, because there's a whole bunch of nothingness to cover, so that'll be pretty easy to get through. But I want to talk about lap one.
Oh my days.
Who do you think it was? Kevin Magnussen's fault or Perez?
Well, I would like to start a bit further back. First
Wanna go
car,
all the way to
let's
turn
go through Carlos and Piastri first.
There?
Fair but hard racing, I think Carlos was over the limit. He should have given up the place sooner. Without a shadow of doubt, he should have done that. Very, very lucky. Again, we've had myself and Chris have spoken about this in depth because of some suggestions that it was Ferrari robbery, should I say? But according to the rules, all operating cars have to pass through the first sector before the red flag drops in order for the grid to maintain its current positions as of the red flag dropping. If not, you reset to what the starting order was of the race. I think that was probably a little bit on Carlos. He almost doomed his own race because he kind of just went a bit over the limit into the side of Piastri. I think Piastri is completely just to have as much space as he got.
I can see why, but at the same time, turn one, you know that racing up the hill, unless you're axle to axle, you're gonna have to back out anyway. So yeah, I do agree with you. That was a bit. I mean, hindsight is 2020, of course, but yeah, a little bit too much.
Yeah. So obviously we get up to the top of the hill. Carlos locks up, goes straight on. All of a sudden the cameras pan back. Now we can go on to the big shebang. Kevin Magnussen, Sergio Perez, Nico Hulkenberg.
But I do also, before we get onto that one, I do also want to say it is just luck of the draw that Sainz got lucky.
Yeah, exactly that.
There were multiple different single instances, and racing is such that you can't treat it by outcomes, or else that sets a dangerous precedent. There were multiple single incidents that all combined to give Sainz another life. So that was quite lucky, but not illegal or anything.
Exactly. So a little bit of clarity on the rulings, because I've been seeing a lot of drama on social media as well about this. If you look back at the crash, Guan Yu Zhou was unable to get around the crash in time.
Yeah.
One thing that actually bothered me about that situation, the medical car arrived on the scene before Guan Yu Zhou did. And the two medical car drivers, the driver and the co-pilot, both got out of the car onto a live track with a Formula One car behind them. That is my biggest takeaway from that incident. I understand it was almost stationary. Bad. Brother. Dude.
Because it's one car, B, there's so much rubber there that they can't really go at a big speed. And I think it's all priority because Joe has got it all in front of him.
Yeah.
So at least they're not in his blind spots or anything. But it's priority of saving Perez. I do agree that there's probably a protocol issue there because I can see why you're upset. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But yeah, I think any other track that doesn't happen, Zoe gets through before the medical car gets there.
Oh yeah, not a question. I'm just, in my understanding of safety guidelines, you are not supposed to have any medical personnel, marshal personnel on track while there is still a live race car on that track. That is, as far as I'm aware, unless it's under a safety car or a VSC or a double-waved yellow condition. And there were no double-waved yellows there. It wasn't even a red out at that point.
There were double-waved yellows, I think.
From the onboard that I saw,
mind you, from Zoe's point, no.
Trying to get around the medical car, there was no double-waved yellows from the marshals as far as I saw. So that was a qualm I had with that. But otherwise, again, Zhou could not get past that incident in time to get through Sector 1 before the red flag dropped. That's why the race was reinstated to its starting positions. It's in the rule book. Very lucky, I'll admit that. Very, very lucky, but in the rule book.
Did you see the other incident in Formula 2 on that same corner?
I actually
where someone came flying, and so basically on that same corner there was a crash car with personnel out on the track checking it, and this car came under yellows and didn't slow down, and on the uphill on the left they were on the blind spot, so he came around and must have missed a person's leg by about 5 centimeters.
Dude, I don't know. The Formula 2 safety standards this weekend have been a bit shocking.
Huge penalty. No, they have
If we even go back to the sprint race, there's been a very viral clip of Mr. Isaac Hadjar.
Yes.
Flying through the tunnel, coming up on the back of Miata, I believe it was. Miata,
Montoya?
I thought it was Ritomo Miata going slowly through the tunnel.
I know it was him. I'll take your word.
Okay. So going slowly through the tunnel, Very viral clip. Comes full speed through the tunnel. All of a sudden, comes around a blind corner, sees the car almost stationary in the tunnel, flicks to the left, saves the day. Why was he going so fast when the boards were flashing for a slow-moving car, and he's going around a blind into a double yellow section? Unbelievable reaction speed. Complete idiocy that he was in that position in the first place. Absolutely.
Not only
idiocy.
that, but if you consider the lighting conditions, that's as you're about to bend out and go from a very dark tunnel to very light. So, you always get a bit of blinded as you come out. And that's right the spot where you start less seeing what's in front of you and more just the light at the end of the tunnel. So, extremely good performance there.
100%.
Okay, so
Sorry, back to the previous Formula
Perez and Magnussen and Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
Chaos, man. I don't know how that wasn't a penalty, in my opinion.
The only thing that I can say is by the time... So I watched the onboards quite extensively. By the time Kevin Magnussen had his front axle in line with Sergio Perez's rear axle, there was still enough space on the inside to fit a car. Perez assumed that Kevin Magnussen would back out, which any driver with half a brain would have done. So not Kevin and not Lance Stroll.
I think even if two drivers would, but yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So Kevin had technically the right to enough racing room. And then just according to the track characteristics, the line for that corner is you need to kind of veer off to the right a bit, kind of to open up the corner at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
And Kevin's tires his front axle was aligned with Sergio's rear axle by the time Sergio corrected his line and kind of closed the gap off and pushed Kevin into the wall. I still don't see how K-Mag does not deserve a penalty for that.
100%. I think it's just lap 1 leniency, but I don't agree with that either.
If that was a lap 2, lap 3, lap 4 incident, K-Mag is on a race ban. Not a 100%. question.
But to quickly answer Jinx's question about how many more mistakes K-Mag has to make before getting banned, something like this one.
Yeah.
Maybe forcing another driver off track, depending if it's soft or harsh. He's got 2 soft mistakes and 1 harsh one, and that's it.
Yeah.
For the next year.
Yeah.
So we will see a race ban from him.
Oh, absolutely no doubt.
Because, agree, Jordan, I don't know how he didn't get a penalty. You like, I get that it's lap 1, but at the same time, there is no space there. You know you're going to get squeezed, and you're fighting for last place. Why are you fighting this hard for one more position that took you out, and now you had no chance, whereas at least, you had a chance waiting for other carnage, which did later on happen.
Yeah, I mean... Listen, again, I literally think it's only the fact that the front axle and the rear axle were aligned, and then first lap incident is probably playing a factor in there. But again, if I'm in that steward's room, I'm pushing for that penalty because from some of the calls we've seen throughout this season so far, where we've seen drivers cited for irresponsible and unsafe driving and reckless driving, this was reckless. The fact that you keep your foot in that section of the racetrack.
Force your nose in, and it just, what it gives me, JV, is it just gives me this air of, like, F1 multiplayer vibes.
It does, yeah.
Like, arguments of, not even that it's an open lobby, but, like, league arguments of, my nose was there, I deserved space. You're not always entitled to space if you're the car in front. Like, yes, there's a limit to where you need, if you're side by side, to leave a space. But part of racing is just leaving no room so that you can shove them into positions that's less fortunate for them. And if you don't back out, I'm sorry, but that's on you.
Exactly that, yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you anymore. I think it's just... I think probably the comments where you were saying that he was entitled to room, I think that's partially kind of... You know what they do when they try and play towards the gallery? They play towards the stewarding room. They transmit a radio message in hopes that the stewards will hear it and give some form of leniency. But yeah, I really can't fathom it. You have nothing really to gain by stealing one extra spot that low down on the grid in the Monaco Grand Prix when you know it's a Red Bull. Come on, like the Red Bull's just going to undercut you and bugger off back in front. And I mean, unfortunately, we saw
exactly.
Yeah, we saw kind of. I think this is just Magnussen is one of those drivers with a similar attitude to Max, but he doesn't have the same level of ability. Where
I can agree.
It's I'm going to put my car here. It's your choice if we crash. And listen, I think that's all fun and games if you can back it up with the talent. And unfortunately, I just.
But
think
not
that
only
Kevin
that, I
is-
think it's relative.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like Max plays those games with first place because he knows he'll have the weekend after and the weekend after and the weekend after. Kevin Magnussen in Haas, you don't have these positions to go for a weekend and completely throw away your points.
Exactly that, Josh.
And I think that Haas is also looking at this and thinking, no, we don't want this anymore.
I don't know. I
The
think
reliability, because we've got to run PR schemes around you 24/7 because most of the F1 world does not like you, and with good reason.
I find it really incredible. I really do find it actually so incredible that kind of driving is just tolerated. But I mean, literally, what can you do? Really, what can you do? It's like there's so many procedures and protocols in place to prevent serious punishments of these kind of lap one incidents, even when there is kind of an outlier at fault. I know a lot of people are kind of on the fence as to whether it's a racing incident or not, but in my eyes, it's just that is Kevin putting his car there and saying it's your choice if we crash, and he's not.
Correct.
And he doesn't. The thing that grates me is he did not even bother, because Sergio has two options. Either he takes the racing line and leaves room for Nico, or he cuts off Nico and he leaves room for Magnussen, and Magnussen is the closer car.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really have anywhere to go, and Magnussen is the person who instigated that incident. Obviously, very unfortunate for Nico. I think Nico was a complete passenger in the accident.
Complete person, 100%, man.
He was actually this close to getting through.
Yeah.
It's just, he got
And he
kept
was
on the
very
rear
smart
tires.
about it. He saw it, he made a quick decision. He thought, shit, okay, I need to put foot to get out of it, and he just got nicked. Man.
It's so
And he was
unlucky.
fuming, eh? He
Yeah.
was fuming, and rightfully so.
So, I mean-
Rightfully so. I think, you know what I think it also boils down to that I've just thought of is, I think it is also just the fact of, like, I don't think the FIA can justify him having a race ban over that incident. So now they're kind of playing their cards right, which I get, but it's also frustrating because it shouldn't matter how close you are to a race ban. If it's a penalty, it's a penalty, regardless of circumstance.
100%. And
But
I mean,
I think they're trying to protect their ass a bit.
yeah, but I mean, if it's an incident that you take out two other competitors, and
And you leave a shell of a car.
exactly,
I mean, that's also something. I mean, that car was just like the spine. That's it.
yeah. So I mean, that's one incident. Funnily enough,
The
a little
next
bit
one.
further up the track, there was another incident.
A French incident.
French Revolution. We saw Esteban Ocon with a little bit of terrorism on Pierre Gasly.
A little bit.
Yeah, just shocking, dude. Like, I don't know. That first lap, the quality of driving on that first lap was just scary, dude. It
Jordan,
was scary
don't say
bad.
shit because we've been banging the drum for a more exciting first lap
You see,
incident.
but this is the thing.
Don't say
this
shit.
is the thing.
Shut up.
This is the thing. I want first lap incidents where it's beneficial to a race, should we say. This was just shite. This was just straight up shite. It was terrible. It was crap. Esteban Ocon, I don't know if anybody missed it, but coming down out of the hairpin.
He literally just mounted that curb.
Yeah, straight up. He mounted the curb, came down straight down the inside, a very audacious move onto Gasly. Did not have enough steering angle.
He almost had it.
He
He
almost
almost
did.
had it.
Except for
And
the
then he
fact-
just got lazy.
Exactly. Well, I mean, except for the fact that his car does not have enough steering angle to be able to not
That too.
peer into the barrier. Sends Esteban fucked off up into the sky, comes smacks back down onto the ground, fucks his rear suspension, and that's his race over. Almost running Gasly's race as well when he's finally running in a points position.
Correct.
I
Which
just-
Alpine is very lucky to be in at all.
Exactly that, Joe. And I just think a move like that, when you need to, we keep speaking about upping your stock in this game, especially with the driver transfer market that's going to be opening up at the end
100%.
of the
And
year.
especially in a team with no contracts. You know you've
Exactly.
got double the chance, kind of.
I just think that Esteban's doing himself no favors. He's really
I
doing
don't think
himself
he's got a
zero
seat for
favors.
next year. I don't know if you saw this, but Fama, the head principal, the
Bruno,
team principal of
Bruno,
Bruno
whatever.
Fama,
Yeah.
yeah, it sounds like they're seriously considering. Excuse me. Sounds like they're seriously considering benching him for Canada. Like, when have we seen a driver benched? Usually they're either just removed or,
But
get shouted at. But they're genuinely discussing benching him.
who would they? Would they put Jack Doohan in the car? Or would they put Mick
I think
Schumacher?
so.
Because Mick Schumacher's their what?
I
Their
know Mick
endurance
is on
driver.
the short list for them for next year, but I think they would put Jack Doohan. Yeah, thanks for the agreement, Jinx. I just think, as Jordan and I both said, like, you're in the shop window this year. This whole year you're in the shop window, and unfortunately, Formula One forgets your achievements far quicker than your mistakes.
Oh yeah.
And the bigger the mistake, the longer that sticks with you. And when it's on your teammates, that's not something you shake off. When it's your second teammate that you're having issues with, that's not something you want in your team. He's done.
And I mean, let's not forget, 12 months ago he was standing on the podium in Monaco. Esteban has his flashes.
That's crazy. That's
Est-
true. I forgot about that.
Esteban does have his flashes, but I just don't think it's enough. Every result
No.
he's ever gotten is circumstantial, in my eyes, completely. I don't think he's really ever had a real banger drive in his career. When he won in Hungary, he was holding back Sebastian Vettel in a far inferior Aston Martin, and Sebastian was constantly less than a second behind him than almost the entire race. In Monaco, again, very, very lucky with all of the strategy that went on. Managed to basically pip in front of a lot of drivers through sheer circumstance.
I completely agree, and I think also it's just that the lowlights are far bigger than the highlights.
Exactly.
Because he does have some highlights, but they're few. But the lowlights are far more often, and they're big. I mean, he's crashed with every teammate he's had.
Yeah. No, I just don't think he's a very good guy to have on your team. I don't think he's good for team morale or
Not at all.
anything like that. I just think he's
Not
damaged his
leadership.
stock.
No. And I think it's irreparable. I mean, they're also. I think they were also strongly talking about the fact that they might have to make some difficult decisions, and that sounds like cutting him for next year. And right now, can't blame them. But I do
Yeah.
appreciate Bruno Famine coming in and being quite upfront.
Yeah,
That's
I
not
heard. I
usual
heard.
for us for Alpine.
Yeah, I heard that they gave him quite a talking to outside in the garage and a very
Yeah.
stern talking to. Because I mean, Esteban's been quite vocal about his intentions to leave the team by the end of the year for a different seat, different opportunity. He's been hardcore pushing for the Mercedes seat, and I just don't think that any real team will take him seriously anymore. He
Even if
really,
it's for a year, I don't want to deal with that PR mess for a year.
I mean, he's a decent midfield driver, and that's it. Yeah, I think that's kind of where his career will live and end. Unfortunately, plagued by a couple of incidents, but again, just what can you do?
Man, I love this podcasting time. This afternoon light's really flattering me.
Looking so pretty today.
Fantastic. Thank you.
But yeah, I think we can move on a little bit down to the actual race.
Pretty
a little-
standard.
Yeah, a little bit
And in
disappointing.
Monaco.
Obviously, the red flag's allowed for the tyre change. There's no rule in Formula One that dictates a mandatory pit stop as long as you run more than two compounds during the race, or more than one compound during the race. Then you're more than allowed to just not have a pit stop. When under red flag conditions, obviously you're allowed doing repairs to minor bodywork damage, and you're allowed changing out your tires. So basically, we just had people driving 5-6 seconds off the pace constantly the whole race to try and preserve their tires to the end.
Such is the name of the game in Monaco, track position, isn't it?
Yeah, and unfortunately, we even saw a couple of strategy attempts. One
Yeah.
with Lewis Hamilton, where
Don't get me started.
that was just
That was
ridiculous
such a
from
mess up, man.
completely ridiculous from Mercedes.
I did some more digging, and it's, Martin Brundle suspected that it would be obvious, but they actually told him outlap normal. So they didn't even. It's not that they omitted outlap critical. It's that they told him basically don't push.
But the thing is,
Which
if say
fascinating.
you've got outlap, if you box your driver, and you leave him in the air, and you don't tell him that there is the threat of Red Bull boxing and covering you in a race.
And Lewis showed with pace he had the time. Yeah.
And I mean, in that specific circumstance, everybody's driving as slow as they are.
Yeah.
The fact that they don't alert him that Max has now begun a push lap to be able to cover it off, they don't feed him any of that information. It is so much more technical than we think. And the fact that, okay, yeah, granted, you come out of the pits, you want to push as hard to overcut somebody, but if they, in a race situation like that where you have the option of staying on the tires until the end or boxing to overcut, surely you would want that information saying, okay, the driver you are trying to undercut is not pushing, so outlap normal. Therefore, you can just bring the tires up to temp. You don't have to take too much out of them. Outlap critical means you sacrifice that bit of tire life to be able to make up the time. And
their excuse was, yeah.
I was going to say the fact that they did not alert him that Max began his push lap. That is just terrible engineering. That is a terrible race engineering move. And
100%.
it's just, I don't know.
I completely agreed. And what infuriated me was just the fact that their excuse was, well, yeah, our bad. It was that, and then it was also the fact of, like, I forgot it now. But yeah, they didn't seem too fazed by it after the race. They did say that they were worried about the tires and they were worried about taking too much life on. Guys, you're putting on hards when the front runners are on like 30 lap old hards. You'll be okay if you continue at their pace and you'll keep a good gap. Like, really? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating.
And you're gonna leave your other driver to finish on mediums that he's done the whole race. So
Yeah.
what's up?
I mean, it's just frustrating.
At least then you protect him from max pressure. Yeah.
Lewis has been kind of causing a little bit of a stir this weekend about, and kind of stirring the controversy pot, and throwing some speculations into the ring about potential Mercedes. I don't want to say sabotage because that sounds quite harsh.
Funniness.
But something funky going on behind the scenes there. Because Lewis fully came out and he said, I don't expect to out-qualify George for the rest of the year. The gap will always be 2/10. And what does that mean? What could that possibly mean? It's just... That is just either it's speculation baiting, just to get a little bit of buzz around them going, or there's something legit happening in the background. And I don't see Lewis being the kind of guy to throw around kind of baseless accusations and baseless speculation for nothing. So, I don't know. I think just this whole weekend was a shambles from Mercedes. I think, to be fair, their car looked a lot better. Their car looked competitive.
Bro, for practice, I really got excited because I thought they're not going to have to do the usual compromise between low speed and high speed. They can put their eggs in the basket of low speed. They'll be chilling. Practice was really promising, like 1-2, 1-3, 2-3, looking really good. Qualies fall off.
And I mean, let's not forget George. George was the only runner in the top 5 that was on hards. There was that strategy variation. There was that option to go long in case of a safety car. There was potential for a very good result this weekend. And I mean, obviously the red flag undid that a little bit, and they had to put him on the mediums until the end of the race. And I mean, kudos to George. He did fantastic to nurse those to the end when some people had to box off of the hards in fear of Deg. But again,
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
They might have been able to box George also because, of course, Lewis and Max were on the same strategy as him. And they might have been able to protect George if they'd boxed Lewis, gone Lewis to hold up Max a bit, and off you go.
Yeah.
And then you would have been free of max pressure and you would have had 2 positions higher, but they were scared of screwing George over for 2 races in a row. I don't know why they're handling this so delicately. You've got Lewis leaving. Who cares? I mean, I get they don't want to piss George off, but it's one of those. How are we showing preference? We know you're our man. Right now, we just want the points.
Exactly that, Joe.
Like, please, we're trying to just do our best. Can we stop with this, like, baby feeding, like, don't worry, you'll be okay. I'm fed up.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine being a Mercedes fan
is
right
pushing
now
me
is not very easy.
No, and it's pushing me away organizationally. That's the issue.
That's tough.
Is that it's organizationally frustrating me.
No, I
The
can
way they're
completely
handling,
understand
the way
that.
they handled Lewis, the way they're throwing the money at Max that they didn't want to give to Lewis, who won all their stuff, the way that they're like prioritizing George so intensively. Again, I get it, but you've got a seven-time world champion. Do you want to do what you can with him while he's here, or do you want to handicap him to make your other driver happy?
Oh yeah, no, I
Yeah.
completely get you.
Any,
But yeah, that's
anyway,
just overall kind of I feel a little bit of a missed opportunity for Mercedes over the weekend.
I
But
totally agree, man.
what can you do? I mean, you know what? It's better than kind of what it has been. So I suppose there is some form of light at the end of this tunnel, but it is a very, very long tunnel, unfortunately, from what I can see.
But they are making steady upgrades. Not upgrades, but steady improvement week in, week out. I think they're solidifying themselves in a bit of a no man's land since the fall off of Aston Martin. That is not a small fall off. They were from points finishes to back of the pack.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, I don't know.
Fernando, what happened this weekend?
It's 2 weekends in a row now, dude. Last weekend as well. Absolute stinker.
I
This
don't
weekend,
expect that
complete
from him, and
stinker.
that's why it's a bigger deal that it's 2 weekends in a row because normally Fernando has one off weekend and then he's kind of
Yeah.
back the next weekend to show you, look, it was a once off.
Yeah, but I mean, granted, last weekend, I mean, in Imola, I could understand. Obviously, he had the incident, and that was
Yeah,
his fault. But
that was fair.
they couldn't put the upgrades back on the car. I think this weekend was just very much he was out of sync. It seemed the whole weekend.
Yeah.
And granted, he played the team game spectacularly. Backed off the pack, allowed for
Fantastically,
Stroll
man.
to make a free
Yeah.
pit, and then Stroll still managed to shag it into the walls and get a puncture, which is just. Oh, that's the most
Iconic.
Stroll. That's the most Stroll thing. He is
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
Stroll will go
yeah.
down as an iconic driver for how iconically shit he is at Formula One. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's incredible. Like
You'll be mentioned in the goats of Latifi, of
Grosjean of.
Grosjean, Maldonado. Speaking of Latifi, you know the biggest boat in the harbor this year is owned by, I think his name is Michael Latifi, Nicholas
Oh,
Latifi's father. You know
mad.
who he bought that yacht from?
Lawrence Stroll.
Oh, of course.
Of course he did. I don't know.
Quite
There's
an
just.
interesting F1 world bubble there, man.
Did you see also in the harbour there was someone who had a little bit of an interesting boating accident?
Someone handed over Kevin Magnussen,
Holy!
you know.
If you guys haven't seen, do yourselves a favor. Go and Google Monaco
Yikes.
2024 boat crash. Some guy came flying. I think he hit the wake of another boat and just careered it straight into the docks.
Yeah, I think he lost control and just came. Thankfully, it looks like no one was hurt. But man, he came in at a speed, hey?
Yeah, that was hectic. That was very funny to watch, though. But yeah, I think we can go back on to kind of where the race kind of, just bubbled away very, very slowly. Kind of throughout all of the phases, we saw some attempted pit stop strategies. Obviously, we saw some overtakes. Lance on a fresh set of softs made some progress on some worn tires.
And he did well.
We also saw
He had a sneaky better weekend than Lando. And
then Lando.
Fernando.
We're gonna have some angry
But that was
McLaren
impressive.
fans here in the comments. But yeah, no,
That was
I think
impressive.
he did have a better
Yeah.
overall weekend than Fernando. I think also not a terrible weekend, but not a great weekend was Bottas. I think I saw quite a few moves from him during the race, which was actually pretty cool to see. I don't know what happened with,
Well, he
with
did-
the Saubers.
He
Their
did the
tyre
first
wear.
overtake.
Yeah, I mean their tire wear looked shocking the whole weekend.
Yeah.
Pretty scary. But yeah, again, just there wasn't really much that fizzled it down in this race. It was just like a couple of attempted strategies, not much happened. But again, that's what happens in Monaco if you have an incident like that. And
It's
yeah,
one
I
of
mean-
those races that if you don't watch live, it's not worth watching. The
Exactly,
only
yeah.
reason you watch it live is, what if someone hits the wall? What if this happens?
I mean, the
And
highlights
that's
package
all
from
that
that
holds
race,
you on.
you could probably put a highlights package together from that race that would maybe be 2 minutes long.
Easily.
And that
And
would,
the only reason it would be 2 minutes would be to give context.
exactly, yeah. From the
That's
crashes,
it.
it would be all of the crashes, the incidents, and then Leclerc's winning and his radio messages.
Correct. And maybe one little piece of a lap.
Exactly. But I mean, let's go
In
back
the
up to the
middle.
front.
So,
I think McLaren, again, really, really solid weekend. They're looking incredible. Red Bull obviously struggled
Yeah.
with one car out, one car in no man's land in P6. But I mean, the low speed seems to be their issue this year.
You know what it is? I did some digging, and it is when they have to raise the ride height too much.
Oh,
But
yeah, I suppose
then,
the curbs in Monaco are actually quite deadly.
correct, similar with Imola, that's why they struggled a bit, but they didn't have to raise it as much. And this is an issue that Max also was quite open about in the press that has been an issue since 2022, but they've had such a pace advantage they haven't been really exposed.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they, with raising the ride height, that clever suspension suddenly sort of bottoms out and it doesn't hold the same geometry and stuff to be compliant with the track as nicely. So that's a piece to look out for. It means Singapore will repeat itself later this year, and maybe some other bumpier tracks will see some more chaos
I mean,
if they haven't
Baku,
been
Baku
resurfaced.
might be a bit of a problem as well because Baku's got
A hundred
some
percent.
quite heavy curbs. Um, I don't know. It's just
And it
just an
seems like
interesting
it's
one.
not a small issue. When it hurts them, it hurts them.
And I mean, I suppose it's actually been an issue for them in the past because I mean, if we look last year,
Yeah.
yeah, in Monaco,
Same at Singapore.
last year Max won, but that's because he pulled out one of the pole laps of all pole laps, and he just managed to.
And once again, he struggled in the second sector, which is where he struggled this whole weekend.
Exactly, I think it's been, and then when we got to Singapore, just not a great weekend. In Baku, he didn't score, he didn't get a pole position there, even though he won the race. Again, struggled both races, sprint and quali. He didn't. I think Charles got a double
Yeah.
pole that weekend, and
I think this year the same's gonna happen. That's a good point.
I think it's just an ongoing issue that they need to look into because I mean, yeah, they've been in no man's land a little bit, kind of in these low speed corner tracks. Sector 2 last race as well, the low speed sector through the chicane, through Aqua Minerali, they were struggling at Imola, and now they literally again this whole weekend that they were struggling. Max was on fire through sector 1, but that's because it's very minimal low speed. As soon as you got through the hairpin, down through the tunnel and into the chicane, it just looked horrendous. So I think we're
I
going to
mean,
see
it's
a
all
lot more.
trade-offs, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah, for sure, it is all trade-offs. But when you have now the pack this close up at the top, can you keep
Agreed. You
kind of
you
getting
can't
away with
afford
these
those
trade-offs?
weaknesses. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
But and I think also what's important to note is that they haven't been as dominant on those other tracks either. So their weakness has become more exposed, but their strengths is not as strong.
Exactly that. Yeah.
So I agree. I'll be curious to see. I'm trying to think now of a track with very few bumps but still low speed corners, because that'll answer if it is mainly.
I suppose Hungary would be an example of that. There's not real hectic curbs.
Yeah,
in
you
Hungary
only
as
have
far as I
one. You only
remember.
have one major curb that you're climbing. Yeah, that's a good point. So to see is it the bumps that then makes it awful in the low speeds and sort of sets off this chain reaction, or is it just that the bumps exasperate it and yeah, their low speed is okay.
Yeah, but I mean, this teases up beautifully for the rest of the season, as you spoke about at the start of the podcast. First race
100%.
since first season since 2017, we've had 4 separate race winners in the first
8.
8 races now. Have we had 8 races? I thought we were on like 7,
Hang on,
6.
fact checking right now.
I can't remember, but either way, yeah, I mean, it's just it really opens up this title campaign to quite a few contenders because Charles at the moment is 32 points behind in the drivers, 20.
Yes, sir. This is the 8th race of the season.
So we're a third
That's
of the
wild.
way through, and there's only a 32-point gap in the drivers between Charles and Max, and Lando's not far behind. Lando.
And there's 20 points in constructors.
Oh, that's another interesting thing. Sergio Perez drops 2 places in the constructors this
Yes.
weekend, down behind Lando and
drivers.
Carlos. Sorry, in the drivers.
Yeah,
There is a 24-point
that's a big
gap
move.
between Ferrari and Red Bull in the constructors at the moment. So
Which is nothing in constructors' perspective. And McLaren is getting up there nicely and cozy. We got a 3-way title race.
keep your eyes on this season. Keep your eyes on. It's going to be fucking beautiful.
Oh,
But
sure, man.
yeah, I mean, great race from Oscar. I'll say that much.
very,
really-
and especially managed it well. The pressure in Monaco is tough. And on a rookie, that's very tough.
And I think what we saw, obviously, we saw Charles snake off into the distance by about 8 seconds towards the end. Yeah, Charles started going fast, but I think at that point, Piastri kind of gave up on the race win. He knew that he couldn't get past. So I think there was a part of a strategy there. I really feel like he was trying to back Carlos into Lando to try and allow for Lando to make a move. Because we saw the pace of Oscar drop
100%.
quite significantly as soon as Carlos pulled up behind him. When Carlos was starting to build like a little bit of a manageable gap to Lando, Oscar would drop back. So I think it was just a really mature, really, really impressive drive from him. You cannot falter him in any way from this weekend. Really, really,
Could
really
have
good
been on
stuff to see.
pole. I think that's the only fault, and that's only
Yeah.
if you're looking for something.
But I mean, his ideal lap was
Because
only, what was
still,
it?
that's
It was
wild.
700ths faster than what Leclerc was able to achieve. So, yes, in the lap somewhere there was a tenth and a half. But I mean, come on, around Monaco, that is really, really difficult to find.
That is large. 100%. You're 100% right, especially because I think what a lot of people forget is that the slower the track, yes, it's a bit easier to find time, but 1/10 compared to 1 minute 10 seconds of a track time, to find that 1/10 is suddenly a lot more. So 100%. I was really
Yeah,
impressed with Oscar. Yeah, as you said, managed it well.
beautiful.
Lando was a bit stuck in no man's land also, but did pretty well. I enjoyed watching sort of them bind up together and sort of pressure each other for a few laps and sort of be in their mirrors and sort of really close and then back off. And the mind games were full scale this weekend.
As much as it was a boring race, I don't think my blood pressure has ever been higher during a Formula One race in my entire life. I have never been so stressed out watching that gap grow to 2 seconds, shrink to 0.4 seconds, grow to 2, shrink to 0.4. It was just anxiety, complete anxiety. But I mean, I think we can continue with kind of just towards the end result. Obviously, the podium kind of being your Charles, your Carlos. Carlos very lucky to be on the podium. I'll give the McLaren fans
100%.
that, but according to the rules, I think valid. Um, but yeah, again, just I think we should just to wrap up again, just touch. I would love to just finish this off by touching on Charles Leclerc again. Like I don't care. You can accuse me of turning this into a Ferrari podcast. Say it in the fucking comments. I don't care. I just, I really, it's one of the most beautiful, one of the most wholesome, one of the sweetest, one of the saddest, one of the most just perfect moments I've ever watched in this sport. And I don't really know what all I can say about it. There were so many emotions running through my head there. From when he was speaking about his dad, just hearing his voice as he crossed the finish line and he starts screeching. Now we're going to have another infamous yes, yes, yes radio call. Just, I don't know, man. It was just
And also his first win in 2 years, eh?
exactly
That's
that.
crazy. So, to break that cold streak, to break the unlucky streak in Monaco, there were a lot of curses, I think, snapped this weekend. And more than anything, Leclerc looks on a bounce back from the start of the season of note.
Oh, for sure.
And there is no better, let's say, part of the mountain to start your climb than Monaco. And there is no race on the calendar that skyrockets your confidence more than Monaco. So
Exactly
I'm
that.
very excited to see what we got coming up. I think there'll be a lot to watch out for with Leclerc.
Yeah, so I think, ladies and gentlemen, just keep your eyes on the season. I think there's a lot more storylines that are going to develop. I think we could have quite an interesting situation, an interesting season on our hands. Obviously, there's always a chance that Max is just going to fuck off into the distance the next couple of races and just open that gap. But
Yeah.
let's hope and pray. But yeah, guys, unfortunately, there wasn't a lot to speak about this weekend. Obviously, a very emotional weekend for Charles, a very emotional weekend for Monaco in general. But other than that, literally just a very boring race.
Very, very boring indeed. And there's always the conversations that pop up around now about whether or not it should still be there. Jordan, quick, short answer, yes or no? Should we
Yes.
still be racing in Monaco?
Yeah.
I totally agree.
I don't
So
think we can
if you
ever get rid of
disagree
it.
with us, no, I completely agree. If you disagree with us, please drop some comments and fight with us. we'll discuss them at the start of the next episode or on Instagram. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate your time. We hope you enjoyed the Monaco Grand Prix as much as we did, and we cannot wait to see what we have coming up for the rest of the season. Any final words, JB?
Yeah, just make sure to check us out on our socials at WheelnutsF1 on X and Instagram. Same thing, Spotify, Apple Music. We are on there. If you guys have a nice long road trip and you want to hear us shouting at the comments and discussing Formula One, you can download it on there. But otherwise,
Also,
yeah.
please start thinking about which race you want to see us live, like do live with you guys. Watch along. That's the word I was looking for.
I think
Yeah.
I was eyeballing Silverstone because that's always quite an exciting race. Unfortunately, Baku, if we do Baku, we might not be able to do it in the same kind of a format. It might be a different format because I am going to be in Portugal over that period. Very exciting. But I would rate
Maybe we do it in
Silverstone.
person.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, that could be pretty good. But yeah, I still rate Silverstone. Maybe we can
Yeah,
also do
I think
Baku.
so.
That would be very exciting. But just some exciting races that we can do a watch along with.
Agreed.
But yeah, otherwise,
If you have any other ideas, let us know.
no other final words from me. Just overjoyed about Leclerc. I'm going to be celebrating until the next Ferrari fuck up. Living in my little hope bubble and delusion bubble. But again,
you.
thanks to everybody for tuning in. I think, yeah, that's about it for me.